Hey everyone, welcome back to the Abominables. It's Friday. We're up to chapter 7, and this is called the St. Bernards of Veldenberg. Okay. The yellow truck had passed through the beautiful city of Istanbul and was almost in Greece before Con stopped shivering and peering into the rearview mirror to see if anyone was following them. Only when Perry went into the cafe in a little dusty village where they had stopped for petrol and heard on the wireless of the Sultan of Aslihan had fled did the children relax. So wireless is like a radio from the olden days. Unfortunately, the news that they had saved the people of Aslihan from their cruel sultan made the Yetis very smug. "We did good, didn't we?" said Ambrose, his blue eyes beaming. "We're sort of rescuing Yetis now." "Well, don't be rescuing Yetis again, please," said Con, who'd really had a dreadful fright. "Not until you're safe at Farley Towers." That night Perry found a beautiful dressed little bay on the Sea of Marmara, with a track down which the lorry could just go. Lucy and Grandma paddled, lifting their long hair and their legs out of the water like Lady Agatha had shown them, and Ambrose tethered Herbert to a fig tree and told him that he was a big yak now and he could eat grass perfectly well if he tried. Con made a bonfire and they sat around it while Perry told them just how he thought the Parrington porker would look when he had bred it. Pink and fat but very strong, with a double-jointed tail and droopy ears, because pigs with droopy ears are more peace-loving than the other kind. "Can we play the Farley Towers game?" begged Ambrose as they lay down under the stars to sleep. It was a game that Ellen had invented to while away the journey, and the Yetis loved it. "What will we do on our first day in Farley Towers?" said Lucy, because that was the way the game began. "On the first day, you'll have dinner by candlelight with damask napkins, said Ellen. "What will we do on the second day?" said Ambrose. "On the second day, you'll have tea on the lawn with strawberries and cream in crystal bowls," said Ellen. "Erd," said Clarence. "Erd." They never discovered what they would do on the third day at Farley Towers, because at that moment Herbert decided he had seen his mother. So Erd means third. Herbert had been seeing his mother ever since they left Navidad. In fact, when he wasn't swallowing his teeth or trying to dig Herbert holes inside the lorry, seeing his mother was what Herbert did. But up to now, his mother, though unlikely, had been possible. A stray goat, a distant browsing sheep, that sort of thing. Whereas what Herbert was now straining to reach, bleating with delight, seemed to be a rusty heap of scrap metal somebody had left on the beach. Sighing, the Yetis got up again to look. "No, dear," said Grandma sternly, "that's not your mother. That's a wheelbarrow." And shaking their enormous heads, the Yetis returned to their beds and fell asleep. They travelled steadily north, through Greece with its ruined temples and its olive groves, through the long flat plains of the Western Balkans with its stalks and its fields of maize, until they came to a little country of Veldenberg, in the foothills of the Alps. And now there were pine forests and clear, rushing rivers, and the sound of cowbells from the meadows. The air grew cool, the trim wooden houses had boulders on the roofs to weigh them down against the wind, and in the distance, white as icing sugar, were the glaciers of the Alpine peaks. "Isn't it beautiful? It's just like home," cried the Yetis when they were allowed to get out for a moment and have a stretch. "Can I have some leather pants like that?" begged Ambrose, who had glimpsed in the distant fields a little boy in lederhosens, so like what Germans sort of wear, like these special pants with braces that hold them up, and so think of the Sound of Music or something like that. But Grandma had noticed something even more exciting. "What's that noise?" she said eagerly, and Con explained it was yodeling, a sort of cross between calling each other and singing, which people do in the mountains. "I can do that," said Grandma. "I just know I can." She threw back her head. "Yodelay, yodelay, yodelay, hoo, yodelay, 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 hoo," pulled Grandma. "Yodelay, yodelay." "Oh, hush, Grandma," begged the children, while all around there was a sound of eyelids thudding shut. "Suppose someone hears you." But it was no use. Yodeling was like medicine once it gets hold of you, and it certainly got hold of Grandma. And it was with Grandma still going strong that they drove up towards the high Alps and the pass that ran between the towering crags of Death Peak to the east and zigzag range of the Emperor Mountains to the west. "It's going to be quite a pull with this load on," said Perry. "Cold at the top too. I think we'll stop off for a proper meal." So we parked the truck by the deserted mill on the edge of the pretty village, with an onion-domed church, a cobbled square, and an inn with carved wooden shutters and white horse painted on a sign above the door. And when he explained to the Yetis that the children ought to have something hot before the next part of the journey, they all promised to be as quiet as mice and keep the peephole tightly shut. The inn had red checkered tablecloths, wooden benches, and nice old-fashioned paintings on the walls showing brave Saint Bernard dogs with barrels around their necks, saving people from the snow. And while Con and Ellen waded through their huge helpings of liver soup with dumplings, pickled cabbage with ham, and nut cake with whipped cream, Perry, who spoke a little German, got talking to the innkeeper and his guests. And what were they talking about, very angrily? As a mad Englishman called Harry Letts. Mr. Letts was a very rich and very important television tycoon who had come to spend his holiday in the village with his little son, a boy of 9, called Leo. Everybody liked Leo. He was a friendly, quiet, rather dreamy child, but nobody liked Mr. Letts, who had gone round telling anyone who would listen that his son was a spoiled, namby-pamby boy ruined by his mother, and that he, Harold Letts, was going to make a man out of him, or else. So that morning he set out with his little boy to climb Death Peak, and Death Peak, which towered above the village, was the highest, most dangerous mountain in all of Feldenberg. He's a criminal, a lunatic, said the innkeeper, angrily, wiping his counter clean. Even an experienced person would not risk the peak today, with a storm coming up. A storm, said the children, surprised, when Perry told them what had been said. The sun shone, the icing sugar peaks stood out against the pale blue sky. But when Perry and the children got back to the truck and shared the news, the Yetis nodded their huge heads wisely. Oh yes, a storm's coming, a bad one, they said. We can always tell because the hair on our back of our knees go tingly. And sure enough, as the lorry ground its way slowly up the winding road, gradually leaving behind the lush meadows and fruit-hung orchards, the sun vanished behind clouds. The peaks turned mouse-coloured and sinister. The peaks freshened. Poor Leo, thought Con, looking up at the crags of the Death Peak, where the rain was now lashing their windscreen wood. He knew be falling as driftly, blinding snow, and he thought with a pang of homesickness of his own father, who might sometimes throw bags of flour, but never come up with idiot ideas of making a man out of his son. Okay, I'm going to pause it there. Your task today is a little bit different. You're going to do some yodeling for me. Yodelady, 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 oh, yodelady, 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 oh. And I want you to record yourself. Now you can do it filming, like I'm filming myself here, or you can just do your voice. I'd love to see you singing though, because that's the fun part. If you can convince mum or dad to yodel with you, or your brother or sister, that would be really funny as well. I'll even have a little clip for you. I hope I can find one that might be able to help or teach you how to do some yodeling. This will be funny. Thanks, guys.